So, about a month ago, I encountered something a bit interesting. A discussion about Anakin Skywalker. And now, let me make something very clear. I do not have a high opinion of Anakin. While he was a bright and powerful warrior, he was also an arrogant, emotional wreck that was being held together by two shoestrings. And it doesn't help that he has an army of people who can't see just how flawed he actually was. But I digress. The discussion in question had the title, Was Anakin the Last Jedi or the Sith who actually won? Here's the content just so we understand each other. Everyone says Anakin fulfilled the prophecy by killing Palpatine, bounced to the Force, blah blah. What if he didn't fulfill the Jedi prophecy at all? What if he completed a Sith prophecy and no one talks about it? Think about it. He didn't destroy the Sith, he became the most powerful one. Then he turned on his master and took out the last big Force user threat besides himself. The Jedi were gone, the Sith were gone, and only he remained, and he died on his own terms. That's not balance, that's total domination. That's not a fall, that's a win. If anything, Anakin pulled off what Bane wanted but couldn't. And unlike Palpatine, he didn't need clones or secret apprentices. He was just the endgame. What if the real Sith victory wasn't eternal rule, but the ending of the cycle entirely? Now, we can admit, that does sound like a bit of a crazy theory at first. After all, we all know that Anakin did fulfill the prophecy. And look, however you see Palpatine's return in both Legends and New Canon, there is one thing that must be stated. It does not invalidate Anakin's sacrifice. Too many people get caught up in the emotion and the event itself, but they forget that sacrifice is to give of yourself to someone else willingly. The goal was always to save Luke, not fulfill the prophecy. Him doing it was just a happy little accident. But that's going on to a bit of a side tangent, which honestly shouldn't even be a controversial take. It just was presented in the actual universe. Not sure why so many people read into it. Now, when it comes down to Anakin, we have to go with Legends and New Canon. It would be correct that Darth Vader was the last true member of the Order of the Sith Lords. While there would be some pretenders like Lumaya and Vader who took up the title of Sith, they really weren't. Lumaya was trained to be Vader's apprentice, but she was never strong enough in the Force to become his apprentice. It was just the idea that since she was mostly mechanical, Lumaya and Vader could understand each other. But do not mistake, Lumaya is a very skilled combatant. She's just not a Sith. Vader, she's just a Dark Jedi trained by Palpatine. But that doesn't make her a Sith either, otherwise there'd be 100 of them running around. With every 2-bit Dark Jedi Palpatine ever trained, including the Emperor's Hand, claiming to be Sith. But in New Canon, they outright state that the Sith are gone. Just because Palpatine recalled from the netherworld of the Force doesn't mean that Anakin didn't fulfill the prophecy. There was no continuation of the Sith teachings and doctrines. No new apprentice was made. So when Vader turned to the light and became Anakin again, he effectively destroyed the Sith. After all, the Sith weren't actually gone the second Palpatine died, but instead, when Vader finally released his anger, his hatred, and became Anakin again. That moment when Vader asked Luke to take his mask off, despite knowing that he would die, means that he underwent the transformation. He did die on his own terms, as Anakin Skywalker, and had killed Darth Vader. But that actually leads us into a bit of an issue when it comes directly down to the dark side itself, because what is it? Well, we have established that Anakin did fulfill the prophecy, and that Palpatine's return does not invalidate said prophecy, because, you know, there was a whole brand new one when Palpatine returned in Dark Empire that spoke of Anakin's children, and that there were no other Sith around afterwards, so yeah, prophecy still fulfilled. Our friend here is talking about Anakin pulling off what Bane couldn't, and there is some reasonable basis for this. People tend to forget that the Force isn't made up only of light. George Lucas himself states that the dark side is a perversion that in and of itself isn't entirely true. I know. He's the one who created the universe, so why should he be invalidated? Primarily because it's his own work that actually invalidates him. The Mortis gods, for instance, and just how the dark side acts. Yeah, as we saw in terms of Yoda's dark side when he confronted it, you honestly see that George Lucas contradicts himself when it comes right down to it. If we take the dark side and the light side for what they actually are, not some body analogy where a healthy body is the light side and the dark side is an illness or cancer or virus, you know, given how many beings evolved via mutations from viruses, illnesses, and the like, it'd be missing the point entirely. The light and dark sides are aspects of a being's nature that developed during times of evolutionary stresses. When the dark side was needed, that allowed for early survival instincts to focus on the self rather than others, to take without thinking like animals. While the light was when beings began to grow sentience, when they were no longer bound by instinct and instead could come together to form societies, communities where the need for the self is less required and the need for the greater whole is more important. When a being uses the dark side, it's them giving into their most fundamental and yet unnecessary animalistic natures. The Sith's need for more, their fear of loss, their greed stems from that time. It still exists in every sentient being, no matter how intelligent or old, because it is still useful. People dabble in the dark side all the time, but it does not consume them. Well, I mean, technically. It actually does in some, and when it does, you get things like fascism, authoritarianism, excessively rich people. It's a massive mess, to be entirely honest. It's why they always have this emptiness within them. They can never be sated with what they have. They always must have more. So, you can imagine, if that's the issue you get with just regular people, you can only imagine that with Force users, it's incredibly dangerous. That desire for more, while not inherently a bad thing, when it is driven by emotions such as love or hatred, it creates a blindness that allows for greed to set in even more. Sentient beings in Star Wars, like mortals in other worlds, will always choose the swift and easy path if it is available to them. That is not a moral failing, but is a societal one, which is made worse for Force users. They have incredible power. They are unique, rare in the galaxy, and with that comes pride, arrogance, entitlement, belief that they know better and that they can change things. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it?
I don't think the system works. We need a system where the politicians sit down and discuss the problem, agree what's in the best interest of all the people, and then do it.
That's exactly what we do. The trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to.
By whom? Who's gonna make them?
I don't know. Someone.
You?
Of course not me.
But someone.
Someone wise.
Sounds an awful lot like a dictatorship to me.
Well, if it works.
Now, one can only imagine what the heck Padme was thinking at this moment. But let's be fair, that's authoritarian thinking. It's dangerous, but still merely theoretical for a normal person. But imagine if a Jedi had heard that, such as like Yoda or Obi-Wan. They would have pegged it for a sign of the dark side was taking over young Anakin. All right, I bet a few of you are saying, okay, we're veering off into something that doesn't really matter. But that is where you are wrong, because this context is required to understand that Anakin did what Bane couldn't do. You see, Bane's known by a particular title, and while I don't believe it, he served to create the path towards the Sith's ultimate goal. You see, the Sith themselves have their own version of a chosen one not defined by prophecy or even by the Force, but by precedent, the Sith'ari. The Sith'ari, in new canon, is a prophesied individual of tremendous power in Sith lore, believed to be one who was conceived of the Force itself and would lead them to glory. This kind of shows how blatantly foolish new canon can be. Well, let me tell you what it actually is. The Sith'ari, also known as the Overlord in the ancient Sith language, was the ideal of the Sith. If a Sith is meant to be the ultimate individual, the Sith'ari is a being so far above, they might as well be the closest thing to a god. A perfect being that could ever exist. A being who would lead and destroy the Sith, but in doing so would make the Sith more powerful than ever before. The first to take up the title of Sith'ari was King Adas, a legendary figure who was the longest lasting ruler of the Sith. The first being to bring Korriban to his knees and subjugate it under his heel. He was one of the pureblood Sith with unusual charcoal colored skin rather than the blood red skin of the Sith. He was a master of Sith magic and led the Sith to glory against the greatest Force-based empire in the galaxy, the Rakatan Infinite Empire, driving them off of Korriban but dying in the process. Yet in his death, he provided for his people the means with which to forge the first Sith Empire by using the Rakata hyperdrives to expand their influence throughout the Stygian Caldera, which was a nebula that kept them safe from attackers. It would be in honor of the legendary King Adas that the Sith'ari would be foretold to appear with these words. The Sith'ari will be free of limitations. The Sith'ari will lead the Sith and destroy them. The Sith'ari will raise the Sith from the dead and make them stronger than before. An interesting little prophecy, wouldn't you say? But there have been many false Sith'aris throughout galactic history, with the earliest of them being Ajunta Paul and the Dark Jedi exiles from the Second Great Skirmish, Darth Revan, the Sith Emperor, Darth Riven, all whom were speculated to fit the prophecy, but none of them did. Yet it is believed by the Order of the Sith Lords that Darth Bane had been the foretold Sith'ari, while Darth Sidious believed himself the Sith'ari because what else? He's a narcissist. But none of them were. Bane had destroyed the Sith Order, this is true, but he did not lead them. He manipulated and used an ancient technique, the Thought Bomb, that had Sri Khan destroyed the Brotherhood of the Sith. He instituted the rule of two so that a master and apprentice could be rivals, concentrating the power of the Sith while they hid, due to the false belief that the dark side was finite and spread too thin amongst the vast numbers of Sith. That concentration allowed for the growth of power. And while he's right in some aspects, he is wrong in others. The dark side is not finite. planet. For millennia, the Sith had thousands of their kind running around and achieved great ends. But it was the rampant greed, corruption, and lack of true structure, the betrayals themselves, which undermined the control needed to keep them alive. All he did was ensure an easier way to destroy the Sith and all their knowledge, as Darth Gravid attempted to do so when he turned to the light, seeing the Sith ways for what they were, nothing more than a mere corruption. The question then becomes, who was the true Sith'ari? Well, I think you can guess. Anakin. He did not just fulfill the prophecy of the Chosen One, but also that of the Sith'ari as well. When Vader was burned on Mustafar, that was a baptism by fire. It destroyed what he was, a conflicted young man that was so easily manipulated. And he died to become the mechanical enforcer of the Galactic Empire. He grew stronger and as a result uplifted the Sith to heights of power unimagined due to him still being the Chosen One. While Vader would never reach his full potential while within the suit, he was still amongst the most powerful Sith in galactic history. And if it hadn't been for the weakness to Force lightning in his suit, a weakness put in by Palpatine to control him, he would have killed Palpatine within a decade, even with his burned body. When Vader killed Palpatine, he effectively became the leader of the Order of the Sith Lords and destroyed them by turning back to the light. He chose their end. And when he died, the aspect of Vader was still within him. But now, as Anakin and Vader, they are connected to the cosmic force, to all the power of the universe, freeing themselves of all limits that the dark side and the light side imposed, to become a whole within the Force. Because we must remember that Anakin wasn't the chosen one of the light side or the dark side. He was the chosen one of the Force. And if anyone was meant to become the Sith'ari, then it would be him. And he had to experience the fall, to be in the dark, to be lost, but then redeemed, to become whole.